but we also have these horrific images of brutality, bread lines, mass graves, the gulag. And again, even if you don't know the country, you have these kind of outsiders' visions of extremes, which lend themselves really strongly to fantasy. So that was sort of the reason that I went there. And and I guess the reason I ended up also setting it in a place that was closer to the early 1800s was because I wanted to know what would happen if you brought a gun to a magic fight. Like, I am a huge Harry Potter fan, but wait, there are Harry Potter fans in this room? I am shocked. But part of me was always like, why doesn't somebody just shoot Voldemort? Like, let's muggle up and get this thing done. But admittedly, there are reasons that can happen in the story, but I always kind of wondered what would happen if magic was just another tool in your arsenal. So that's why.
How are we feeling? Won't save you, but you know. So, we have Cappy and Margaret over there, and they invented a fictional town called Gatlin. It's made up. You can't get there. I tried. I was like, I'd like to go there, and there are dreamy boys, and there's pie, and I just feel I would fit right in. And it turns out they made the whole thing up. So perhaps you'd like to talk about that.
That's called being a liar.
And a murderer!
That's true. We set the story in the South because we wanted to find a place where we felt like magic still happened. My family's from a really small town in North Carolina, and their superstition is alive and well. I actually embrace all superstitions from every culture and country. I believe in them all. And we wanted to capture like a tiny, really specific place where you could, as Sarah said, taste the pie, you could meet the people, you knew what kind of flowers were in the garden. And Gatlin is not a real place, which confuses a lot of people, but it is based on an area that is just a bit north of Charleston and south of Somerville, which is a real place. And so like the trees and the geography and the river, all that stuff is really there, just not Gatlin. There was a girl who emailed us and said she was going on a little southern road trip and she wanted to stop in Gatlin and could we give her directions? And I was like, I mean, we can, but there's nothing there.
Yeah, we were on the movie set this summer. Did you guys know Beautiful Creatures was taken?
Good call for the extra clap there.
Yeah, right? That was that pity?
That wasn't really for us though. That was for the movie, it doesn't count.
Well, they
can
deserve
still
it.
die.
You can still die whenever you talk to
You know, I know I could still die, and that sits with me heavily as I'm up here. But when we were at the movie set this summer, it was really interesting because we actually got to see like sheriff's uniform that said Gatlin County PD, and it would be like one tiny detail, and I would just sit there going, "Wah!" which is actually my reaction to most of the movie. Cammy's like, "Look over there, that's Emma Thompson," and I'm like, "Ah!"
Sit down. They're gonna kick us out.
But it is real, so it is real to us, as everyone says who's ever written a book. And one of the really good things about writing this book with someone else was there were two people who were imagining voices in their heads, and they were the same voices. So it makes it a little less crazy.
That means two people who are crazy.
Right.
To clarify.
But we've always been the same crazy, so that was useful. So if you are crazy, my advice is get a very crazy friend.
Be crazy with you.
And then neither one of you will know how crazy you are. That was kind of how this worked out.
Also, the one thing we did, because I like what Libba was talking about with research, we did a lot of
There's going to be a research question later. You might want to save your good half.
Oh, sorry. There's going to be more testing.
Libba said there was testing. There was no testing.
She's not making great life choices.
Feels like the bubble test is coming. Say. Bubble.
Anyway, yeah, so that. Okay.
And then we have Killer Ray at the end. Now, luckily, she went totally made up the land. And it is also very different from the standard yield-eater, Albie, King Arturium. It's, there are deserts, there are foods that are going to seem very strange to like people used to the vaguely American Germany, England places. And I thought you guys might want to talk about the creation of a very different magical land and inspirations thereof.
But before I do that, Sarah, have I told you today how beautiful you look? Amazing. Does she look amazing or what? So beautiful.
Well, it might be kindness. My beautiful face might be the last thing you ever see.
She's done it before.
Anyways, high fantasy. Yeah, so in 1977, something totally amazing happened to me. Does anyone know what happened in 1977? Star Wars, thank you. Yeah. And we just pretend like those prequels never happened. But Star Wars, the original, oh my gosh, my 4-year-old eyes were like this big. And I knew 3 things right away. I knew that the Force was strong with me.
And you had a high midichlorian count?
I still do. Yeah, I'm gonna use the Force to keep Sarah from killing me, I think. And I knew that Luke Skywalker and I were destined to be together forever. And because he's dreamy. And I knew I wanted more stories about magic and mages and princesses who kick ass and farm boys with epic destinies. And so that was it. I was hooked. I was hooked on high fantasy from that point on. And of course, he starts off on the desert planet of Tatooine, right? And I grew up in the desert Southwest, so it didn't matter what I was going to write. It didn't matter if it was paranormal romance. It didn't matter if it was historical fantasy. It was going to have a desert in it. So I wrote a story about a desert in it. Now there's a place in our world that combines the influences that I used in The Girl of Fire and Thorns and The Crown of Embers, and that's the northern tip of Africa, the southern tip of Spain, what used to be the Spanish protectorate of Morocco. And it's really cool because you have these Spanish influences and you have these Arabian influences, and it creates this amazing texture of culture, of architecture, of clothing. You can have camels and bull fights, thank you very much. So I definitely use that a lot for inspiration. And I placed it in kind of like a medieval technology. It's always fun to do that because your characters have to work so much harder if they don't have cell phones, you know? So you go on a journey, it's pretty epic because you have to like walk or ride a camel or something. So yeah, high fantasy is where it's at for me. I love it. I've loved it since Star Wars. I continue to like it with Lord of the Rings, and I'll probably be writing it for the rest of my life.
Alright, he's a pretty high clap count. Keep my eye on. I sort of know who's losing, and I might have to kill 2 people. But I'm willing to do that.
You're outnumbered, just saying.
Little girls, I can take.
We'd like to see you try. Okay, bring it.
Ray has the Force.
Anyway, so round 2, magic systems. Now, in Littlest Book of Diviners, somebody, when you're drunk at a party, you raise an evil ghost. He starts a blank campaign of terror. That's nice, dear. And so it seems in a way that evil is ever present in Liva's world, just waiting to, kill you with an axe. And good has a sort of 50-50 chance of beating evil after many murders have been committed. So I wanted to ask, with the idea of underlying evil, which can be expressed in many forms, that you were going for. Well, I live in New York. The underlying evil what? First, I do have to say, I don't want to unduly influence you, but if I'm killed, they will also kill a puppy. I know you don't,
They will kill a murderous puppy.
I know you don't want that on your conscience. Then again, Ray, you were 4 in 1979?
I was about to say. We were gonna kill her right now. Let's just kill her, and we can be done with this.
It's like, you won't need to kill myself.
Were you 44?
But I'm licensed far beyond my years.
Even read